Recently, I posted a video titled the 12 exercises that got me a 43-inch vertical jump. Now, if you want the sets and the reps of those 12 exercises, then I would go back and watch my last video. However, very quickly, here is a recap of the 12 exercises that helped me get a 43-inch vertical jump. Box squats, band squats, band good mornings, step ups, single leg RDLs, band pull throughs, hyper extensions, reverse hyper extensions, banded walks, banded quarter squat jumps, box jumps, and explosive step ups. So those 12 exercises got me to a 43-inch approach vertical jump. However, I am willing to bet that I would have had a 44 to 45-inch approach vertical jump, maybe even 46 if I hadn't made these 8 terrible mistakes. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell because in 2025, I'm going to be showing you my journey to me getting back to a 43-inch vertical jump, or at least attempting to, at the ripe old age of 33. Mistake number 1 that I made was too much volume all the time. I would do 7 weeks of volume, take 1 week as a deload week, and then repeat 7 weeks volume, 1 week deload, 7 weeks volume, 1 week deload. I would do 2 workouts per week. On Monday, I would do box squats, superset with box jumps, banded squats, band good mornings, banded squat jumps, a step up variation, either a front step up, a lateral step up, or a crossover step up, single leg RDLs, hyper extensions, and banded walks all in the same workout. On Thursday, it would be a little bit different, but I would do box squats, superset with explosive step ups, banded squats, band pull throughs, banded squat jumps, another step up variation, single leg RDLs, reverse hyper extensions, and then banded walks once again. So as you can see, this is a ton of volume for any one single workout, not to mention that for a lot of the exercises, I was doing 3 sets of 20 reps. For example, reverse hyper extensions, even step ups sometimes would be 3 sets of 20, and that is just way too much. So mistake number 1 that I made that kept me from having a 45-inch vertical jump was just too much volume all the time. What I should have done instead, and this is the part where you learn from my mistakes, is I should have done 4 to 6 weeks of volume work, then 1 week deload, and then a 4-week back off where it is very high intensity but low volume. And then you would just repeat that 4 to 6 weeks of volume, 1 week deload, and a 4-week back off. And in your volume phases, you could start with a strength phase and then do a deload and then a back off, then move to a power phase, deload, back off, and then finally a speed phase, deload, back off, and then repeat that entire cycle. Mistake number 2 that I made was that I played way too much basketball all the time. Now I am going to explain to all of you just exactly how much basketball I was playing when I talk about mistake number 4, but there is one very important point that I want to point out. If you're going to play a ton of sport or you're going to do a ton of volume in your training, one very important thing that all of us need to understand is that every single tissue in your body, this is tendons, this is muscle, this is bone, all of the tissue of your body has a certain capacity level. And if you overload the capacity of that tissue, it normally leads to pain. This is the exact reason why certain athletes get tendinopathy. This is why other athletes get shin splints. You cannot overload the capacity of your tissue and then not give it enough rest and recovery, or it is going to result in overuse injuries and pain, which is exactly what I was doing at 23 years old. I was playing entirely too much basketball, which led to a ton of overuse injuries and central nervous system fatigue. Mistake number 3 is that I train my upper body like a bodybuilder. Now, this isn't the biggest mistake, and if you want to train your upper body to be aesthetic and your lower body to be athletic, I definitely think you should do that. But I do want to point out 2 major things that you have to take into consideration. The first thing that you need to understand is that when you're training like a bodybuilder and your focus is time under tension and hypertrophy and building muscle is the goal, then as you would have guessed, you are going to put on some muscle mass. So why is that a bad thing? Well, it's not. if building muscle is your goal, but you have to understand that whether it's 20 pounds of pure body fat or 20 pounds of pure muscle, your body still has to propel 20 extra pounds into the air to jump as high as possible. Now, as you put on muscle, there is going to be some power and strength gains that come along with that. So 20 pounds of pure muscle is, in theory, going to be better than 20 pounds of straight body fat. However, just keep in mind that 20 pounds is 20 pounds. And the example that I like to give is go ahead and try to put on a 20-pound weighted vest and jump your highest. it's not gonna go that well. Now, the second thing that I wanna point out is that whether you're training your upper body like an athlete or training your upper body like a bodybuilder, you need to understand that the central nervous system is not limb specific and it is not upper body, lower body specific. And in most cases, when you are training your upper body as a bodybuilder, you are doing higher volume and going to failure more often than when you are training like an athlete, which can take a toll on your central nervous system, which can therefore take a toll on your vertical jump. One thing that could be very beneficial for you to still have an aesthetic muscular upper body, but not fatigue your central nervous system as much all the time so that your vertical jump doesn't decrease in the process, would be to follow those same exact phases of a 4 to 6 week volume phase, followed by a deload week, followed by a back off phase, and then do the same thing and repeat. Volume, deload, back off, volume, deload, back off. This ensures that when you are crushing your lower body with volume, you are also crushing your upper body with volume. But in the same sense, when you are backing off of your lower body training to jump your highest, you are also backing off of your upper body training so that the central nervous system isn't fatigued. It is a true full body back off phase so that you can jump your absolute highest. Mistake number 4, and this could quite easily be the biggest mistake of all, is that I did not take care of my knees at all. It was actually my first year playing college basketball that I got extremely severe quadricep and patellar tendinopathy. And that tendinopathy actually persisted all the way through me building up to a 43-inch vertical jump. So when I was jumping my absolute highest, I had debilitating knee pain. Now, what did I do that made this such a big mistake? Well, I can remember that first year of college basketball, I actually went to physical therapy for my knees. And I can remember one of the physical therapists saying that if I wanted to strengthen my tendons and if I wanted my knees to feel better, then I needed to strengthen all of the muscles around my knees. And you might be thinking, what's wrong with that? Well, every single time from that moment on when I felt knee pain, I just went and I did strengthening exercises to strengthen my knees even more. So anytime that I had knee pain, I did more squats, more lunges, more leg extension, more hack squats, more and more and more. And if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, most of us know that when you have tendinopathy, you are overloading the capacity of the tendon, and just doing more squats, more lunges, more strength work is just going to overload the tendons even more. And if that right there wasn't enough, I would play 5 to 7 days every single week of basketball for 2 to 4 hours every single time at LA Fitness. And I still had the audacity to wonder why my knees hurt. Mistake number 5 that I made is that I did absolutely 0 calf raises. And now if we take a look at the top 3 most basic strength exercises that you could do for your lower body, we have a squat, a hinge, and a calf raise. And while calf raises are not quite as important as a squat and a hinge, they are still going to be a huge piece to the puzzle to an explosive vertical jump. And with all of the exercises that I did do, squats, single leg RDLs, step ups, hyperextensions, reverse hyperextensions, banded walks, I never did a single calf raise, and that was a huge mistake. What you need to make sure that you do in your training is standing calf raises, seated calf raises, bilateral calf raises, and unilateral calf raises. Standing calf raises are going to target more of the gastrocnemius, and then seated calf raises are going to target more of the soleus. And then bilateral just means double leg calf raises, and unilateral just means single leg calf raises. And last but not least, this is extremely important. Do not overlook this point when you are doing your calf raises. But the reason that I got out this slanted board and the reason why I was doing my Smith machine calf raises on that makeshift wooden step is because when you do your calf raises, you want to ensure, and this is seated or standing, you want to ensure that you can get your ankle into a dorsiflex position and that you can get a full stretch in that calf when doing your calf raise. Mistake number 6 that I made was no max strength work and no max velocity work. You see, back in the day, I hardly did any plyometrics at all. No sprints, no hops, no skips, no bounding, no depth jumps, drop jumps, and other than getting somewhat heavy on step ups and single leg RDLs, I didn't do anything super heavy. See, back in the day, I stayed right here. I did every single strength exercise with moderate load, but I did it explosively. Now, why would this be an issue? Well, it's definitely not if you are an untrained athlete or if you took some time off and you were just getting back to training. But there's something called the force velocity curve. Up here, we have force at the top of the curve. And down here, we have velocity at the bottom of the curve. And in the middle, we have speed strength, power, and strength speed. And all that I ever did was training that targeted the qualities of speed strength, power, and strength speed. I never touched the two ends of the force velocity curve. Now, in my experience training elite high school, college, and professional athletes, I've seen that as beginners or untrained athletes, you can get some great results hitting the middle of the curve. But as you get more advanced, you really have to touch on the edges of the curve, and there's a lot of coaches out there who would agree that if you improve the ends of the curve, the middle will follow. So with all of that said, what should you go and do? Well, I think you should look at it as an insurance plan and just touch all qualities on the force velocity curve. Do things fast, do things heavy, and do things in the middle. And don't make the mistake that I made of avoiding the ends of the force velocity curve, because the ends of the curve are oftentimes where real adaptations occur. Mistake number 7 is that I was not getting nearly enough sleep, which really led to not enough recovery. You see, for me back in the day, there was no lack of drive or motivation at all. So I was waking up at 4 a.m. every single day. However, I was getting in bed, not going to sleep, getting in bed at 10 p.m. every single night. This means that even if I did fall asleep, as soon as my head hit the pillow, the maximum amount of hours of sleep that I was getting every single night was 6 hours of sleep. Oh, gains, baby. And now I will admit that different people need different amounts of sleep. So you might be a type of individual who you don't need 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep. However, you do need to understand that the more stress you put on the body during sport and training, the more recovery in general and sleep that you are going to need. One very easy example that we could take a look at is babies. Right now, I have a 5-month-old son, and he sleeps a lot. Why? Because he is growing. His body is adapting. And when you are training really hard and playing a ton of sport, your body is growing and adapting. And if you don't give it enough sleep and you don't give it enough recovery in general, then you end up with what we talked about before, the overuse injuries, the tendinopathy, the shin splints, the fatigue central nervous system, etc. And last but not least, mistake number 8 that I made that I'm going to skim through very quickly because we already talked about this a ton. Mistake number 8 is not enough rest. What is rest? Rest is anything that is not breaking down the body any further. So when you are training, when you are playing your sport, you are breaking down the tendons, the muscles, the central nervous system, the body in general. Rest is anything that is not doing that. So just make sure that you are getting enough rest. Make sure that you are taking high intensity days and low intensity days. Make sure that you are getting enough sleep. Make sure that you're getting enough calories and protein in general. Make sure that you are not avoiding carbohydrates in general, because as athletes who want to jump higher, we understand that carbs are fast twitch fuel. And just make sure that if you are training really hard and you're playing a ton of sports, that you also give your body a ton of rest. But this was mistake number 8 that I made, and these are the 8 mistakes that I made that kept me from having a 45-inch vertical jump.